Hey guys, so I just turned on the camera, and if you've watched any of my other videos, I said as soon as I go to do something, like a cat hops up. So he was sitting over near the window for the last like 30 minutes, and then as soon as I press play, he hopped over here. So you'll probably see him. Well, I don't know. Now I'm talking about him. So anyway, um, not how I expected to start out. But so I was gonna post something yesterday, but after I got back from wherever I went, I was exhausted, and so that's part of this video today. Um, I first was trying to figure out like what kind of platforms or what kind of videos I was gonna make, and they first were really directed on homelessness. See, here he is. Yes, say hello, Pippin. Um, anyway, so I was first going to post on homelessness because that's the population that I'd worked with for the past 4.5 years. But it's gone into a lot of stuff about me too. So I think it's just going to be a lot, like I've said on, um, I created a different Facebook page too, is just a little bit about everything. So like I had stated in other videos, so I had a car accident a few months ago, and so my car's been in the driveway and broke, and I live outside the city limits, so there's not any buses, and the nearest bus stop is miles away. But um, so yesterday I decided, oh, I'm gonna walk up to the bus stop. I had gotten word that somebody had been looking for me and wanted to talk to me, so um, I decided, well, I'll go into town, you know, and walk around a little bit, see if I can find this person because they don't have a phone and they're homeless. And so, I've pretty much know the routines of a lot of people that I had been around in the past. And so I just thought, well, I'll go into town and I'll walk around for a while because I've been kind of in my house for a while and it's been kind of driving me stir crazy. So little did I know. So where I live, they've been doing a lot of construction and they've had like the main road blocked off. So I took the little side road. Well, the side road doesn't really have sidewalks or whatever. So the times that I've done that, it's kind of dangerous. And I mean, I could have taken an Uber, and I always say like, okay, I'm going to do that, but sometimes they're like $50 to go like a few miles. And I don't know, I've always been like the frugal person that I'm like, can I justify this for spending this much money to go a couple miles when I could walk? So it is cold, but I bundled up and I started walking, and they had opened up the certain part of the road that was closed before. Little did I know, it's like I always learn things as I'm doing them that afterwards, like I've said, I'm like, oh, if only I'd known. But I did not know from where I live to the bus stop going that way was 4.5 miles. And I didn't look till the end of the day. Like, that's one thing that I've made sure, like, I'm not going to, during the moment, like, try to, I don't know, it'll just make me feel like it's a longer way than, like maybe if I fool myself and I think it's not too long, then I can do it. Anyway, so I walked up to the bus stop. I took the bus. During the walk, I think walking really helps me too because I've done a lot of walking lately and I'll put on my headphones. Sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I listen to podcasts or videos, but even in just the walking outside, it's like a lot of stuff starts clicking with me or I get ideas or something. And I think that's part of like I stated before, like this spiritual journey of like the environment influences us a lot and you feel more connected like outside. And I've always been the person to like stay inside when it's cold. But with the job I had, I was outside a lot. So I've adjusted more. Like if somebody would have told me years ago that I'd be walking around in like 30-degree weather, I would have told them they were insane, but I've kind of gotten used to it. So I walked up on the bus. I decided I had been listening to podcasts, and on the bus, I decided, oh, I'm going to put on music. Some song came on, made me sad. I started crying. Then I felt embarrassed, like, because I'm on a bus and people are looking at me, and, I'm thinking, like, oh, people are looking at me crying. But then I've recorded videos where I'm crying, and, it's like I have to keep reminding myself, remember you said it's okay to cry. People need to see, that other people have feelings, like it's okay to express them. Sometimes it's just a moment. So it was me like telling myself, like, it's okay. This song just made you sad. It reminded you of something. It's okay to cry. Like, don't be so embarrassed because you're not going to hop off the bus. So I got off the bus. I walked around in the places that I thought um, this person would be. They weren't. I walked across town. I walked to another side of the town. I ran into a couple people that I had helped before that I knew. Like, and I had a Mountain Dew. Well, I had two because, like I said, I'm frugal. So when they say like buy one for $3.29 or two for $4.50, I'm gonna buy two because then I can justify in my mind, like, okay, well that makes each one of them $2 or whatever. So I had an extra one just like walking around, and then this person I ran into, I was like, "Do you want this extra Mountain Dew? Like, I'm not drinking it." You would have thought that I gave them the world. That it's such a special thing because they don't have any money, and like some people get used to other people not doing kind things, especially like dealing with the homeless population and helping them the way that I did. Some people are used to people not being nice and not doing just kind gestures. And that mindset gets set in them. So when somebody does something like that, it surprises them. And I think that was my mindset for a long time. It's like when you're used to people not doing kind things for you, when you're used to people not helping, not all those things, then when people do nice things for you or do, it's like a surprise. It's like, I didn't know there was people like that. So anyway, gave the person the drink, talked to them, said, no, we haven't seen this person. So I'm like walking all over town, and it was fine. I had bundled up, like knowing it was cold and had layers on. But as I'm walking, it's getting warm and stuff. And then I'm like, well, I can't take off all of these layers right now because I would have to carry them. And it put me in the mindset again of like clients that I had helped, of like the struggles that they go through. But at the same time, I had on my feet like good boots that I bought, high quality when I was doing that job and when I was doing outreach and we were going out into the camps and stuff. So, they weren't like shoes that didn't fit me. They weren't shoes that just somebody gave me that might not be my size. I had on Under Armour that I bought when I was doing that job. I had on like good quality stuff because I had had the means to get that stuff. And it put in my mind again how maybe some people don't know that, you know, my feet were hurting as I walked. There was, after walking for a while, I was like, man, is there a bench I can sit down on? Is there, somewhere where I can rest? Because my back is hurting and my feet are hurting. But I'm in pretty good health. I don't have hip issues already. I don't have like the health issues that a lot of people outside do because they haven't had health care or they haven't had people helping them. So it's that kind of awareness that I kept trying to bring to people who haven't experienced homelessness or haven't worked with people who are going through that. And I think for me, a lot of my knowledge came from either times that I had been in circumstances that maybe they had been in or been through things that they had been through, or from a lot of my clients were completely honest with me, whether it was they were feeling good or they were feeling bad. They were that's where I went back to, like, people would tell me you're real. And I never understood it. Well, it's because I'm open and honest. We could share as much as we wanted to. And there are certain people that, if they had been through things, I'd be like, yeah, I've been through that too. I don't know exactly your circumstance, but I know that feeling. I know the feeling of rejection. I know the feeling of feeling lonely. I know the feeling of feeling defeated. Or I've been in a similar situation where I reached out for help and nobody did, or somebody said they would and they didn't. And so then my trust, is um, played on, or, so then I don't have trust in the average person or in people who say they'll help. Or so a lot of the feelings, were empathy, where I feel the way that this person felt. Not necessarily I'm in the same situation as them, but I'm having that same kind of feeling. And I think that's what connects us, to each other, whether it is in positive feelings or negative feelings. If somebody says, "Oh, I'm so happy because this thing happened to me. I got a promotion," or I got this wonderful birthday present or something. If you've experienced that too, then you're like, "Yes, I know how that feels." Yay for you. But it also works in the opposite of if somebody says, "I'm lonely and I feel completely alone because everybody's rejected me or something," and you've been through that, then you can say, "Yes, I know that feeling too." And I think it's the connection. Sorry, guys. He lays down and then I haven't trimmed his nails, so his nails get stuck on the blanket. So I need to do that. Um, but then he gets mad because his nails are caught on stuff. So he might come in and out. Anyway, so at the towards the end of the day, the daylight time frame, I had walked back to the downtown portion and I was like, I guess I'm just not going to be able to find this person today. And, I had connected with people that I knew and said, if you see this person, let them know that I was looking for them. So I went into a couple little shops downtown, and then I got a phone call from a person who saw him, and so I was able to talk to the person. And I think sometimes it's, we get a thought in our head or we worry about somebody or something, and it's not until we hear they're okay, we see them in person, something that stops that thought. So I think it helped, this person had been worried about me, and so it helped for me saying like I'm okay. Um, but anyway, so I got done. I went into the shop. I got some incense. I got some candles, some things. Like I said, I'm really studying spirituality and figuring out things about myself and the world and others and everything else. So I got some things, and then it was nearing towards, where it was going to get dark. And I had been stuck before in a situation where I waited until it was dark, and then like the Uber was like 50 something dollars. And, I live like, I think 5, 6 miles away or something. So I didn't want to get stuck in that situation. And I was pretty much done with, like, I was like, okay, I've spent time outside. Um, I got some things. I talked to the person, you know. So I called an Uber. I'm waiting on a bench outside of a restaurant, and I during the walking, I had just a lot of my stuff is like I had watched the news a lot. I had paid attention to like social service things going on, things that impacted my population and things that impact, people that don't have a lot or even the middle class. I mean, not saying that everything doesn't affect everybody, but there was a lot of things that's been happening that affected people that I knew or that affected myself. And so I just would get so discouraged, and I was like, it seems like this country's falling apart. It seems like, this city, like, why is it that people don't care about other human beings? Why is it that people don't care about what's going on? It seems like people aren't hearing things or seeing what's happening. Um, and it kept me in this just negative mind frame of like, oh, I want to shake people and wake them up. And so there's been so many things happening within the homeless population. And I had even noticed walking around, like there's not a lot of people like walking around a lot. Like people are, not only is it cold, but like people are kind of hiding because they're going to get ticketed for, panhandling. They're going to get ticketed for trespassing. They're going to get, harassed because they're just hanging out somewhere because there's no benches to sit down anywhere and stuff. And so I had just been discouraged. And then, especially like I had stated in other videos, like the holidays, you know, make me sad sometimes if it's just me. And then I get to thinking about like, what about the people that I've helped and the other people out there who they don't have anybody in the holidays? They don't have family, friends, any of that stuff going on. Like it creates, when you watch everybody else like super happy and all this, it creates sometimes this negative feeling. And not necessarily that I was in that at that time, but so I'm sitting outside waiting for this Uber, and this guy walked by and just said, "Hey, you need some change?" and like pulled out a $5 bill to hand to me. And I just, I mean, I was sitting on a bench. I had the bag from the place that I'd been. I was dressed in layers because it was cold because I had been walking around. I had, my ear, like I have a thing that goes over the ears, it keeps you warm. And I had a hat over that. And then I had my headphones on because I'm listening to stuff while I'm walking around and waiting and stuff. But he thought I was homeless. And because I was sitting there on a bench. And so it kind of took me back. And at first I thought like, well, why do you think I'm homeless? But I said, no, no, thank you. I'm just waiting on a ride. And he immediately said, oh, I thought you were homeless. And kind of pointed to my bag, which was like a regular shopping bag. But then I thought, well, why would he think that? Maybe is it because I had a look of that in my eyes? Because I was in that discouraged feeling, because I was looking in my eyes, like I didn't have a home, which is a lot of times how I felt. Like I have a place, but I think house and home are different. I think sometimes a house is a domicile, that you stay in. And I had always said, like, a house is a house is a house because I had moved so much. Home to me was that feeling that you have, like the people that you have in your life. Home is the place where you can go to, that says, welcome back in. You know, um, you always have a place here. So home to me was a feeling, and I thought maybe he saw that in my eyes, that homeless feeling that I've had for quite a while of I don't think that there's really um people that in my life that are the no matter what you have a place. You can always come back to me. That kind of thing. But as much as I had that kind of revelation within, like, maybe he saw the sadness in my eyes that I had earlier. Maybe he saw the exhaustion in my eyes from walking around, and because it was exhausting. And that's where I said, I had good shoes on my feet. I was dressed in good layers. Other people don't have that. They don't have money to go buy Under Armour. They don't have money to go buy the good work boots. They don't have all those layers. They don't have, the headphones sometimes to walk around and listen to things, or earmuffs to cover your ears from the winds. But for all of those things that I had, there must have been something in my eyes, because there's other people sitting around on a bench, but he had said, it's because you're sitting on the bench right here. But so I said, no, I don't need it. Like, I have a place. I'm just waiting on a ride. But I said, but give it to somebody who does. You know what I mean? Like, the next person, ask somebody else and give it to them, because they do need it. Because a lot of people might not think, like, $5 might not be a lot, but when you have nothing, $5 is a lot. You know, when you don't have a drink and somebody offers you a drink, when you don't have gloves and somebody offers you gloves, you know, um, it's a lot. I don't know how to describe the feeling, but I've seen it with clients that I'd helped, and within myself of, when I've needed a hug or something, when somebody does something that's a need for you, it's so much greater than a want. We could all say we want this, we want that. And if we don't get it, uh, oh well. But when it's a need, when you need gloves, when you need music to listen to, when you need people to talk to, when you need money to get things that you don't have, food, or like I stated, like gloves and stuff, a hot cup of coffee, something. So from the time it started that I started walking at the beginning of the day, it really changed the mind frame where I was like, oh, here I was thinking, like, what's wrong with the world, and what's wrong with people, and why don't people care, and why don't people see other people? Why don't people hear other people? At the very end of the day, when I was ready to leave, here comes along this stranger that shows me, hey, there are people who care, which is the same thing that I had tried to tell my clients. Like, for every, 20 people that tell you negative things about yourself, or, do negative things, there's still kind people out in the world. There's still people that care. And so that was, I don't know, it was like a peaceful feeling, and see, you see that there's people out there still. Like, don't think just because you're inside the majority of the time because you can't go out a lot because it costs a lot, or you don't have a car, or you don't need anything right now, that kind of stuff. Don't think just because you're isolated in your little space that there aren't the kind people out there, even within your community, because there are. So I got home, and I had intended on the ride back, I was thinking, like, I need to make a video about this. But after I got home, I was like, man, as soon as I sat down, I'm like, oh, my feet hurt so bad. Like, I had known a little bit throughout, but the times that I could sit down, I did. And, um, and take little breaks. And, I just thought, oh, my feet hurt so bad. Oh, my back hurts so bad because I'm 50. Like our bodies, hats off to a lot of the older ones out there who are still doing marathons and stuff. That's not going to be me. But I know that I can walk. I looked at my phone afterwards, and that's how I realized. I was like, oh my gosh, it was that far. Like, oh, I walked 9 miles today. But it didn't seem like it at the time because I had a mission, and because I kept stopping myself and saying, like, oh, it is a nicer day out. Like, it's not as cold as I thought it would be for me. But then so I took my socks off, I took my layers off, I made a hot bath, soaked in some Epsom salts, went in and got a cup of tea, stuff like that. And then I thought, like, I'm able to reverse some of that, or like heal some of that, but there are people out there who can't, who at the end of the day, they're at a shelter where they can't go take a hot bath or even a hot shower. They can't take their shoes off, or, they're afraid to because they might get stolen. They're they don't have tea to go do put in the microwave a hot cup of tea and then get into their warm bed. They don't have that. Like, I have a heating blanket on, like always cold. I keep moving the thermostat, and I always say, like, is that because I move so much in my life? Like, my body didn't really acclimate that much, or is it based on feelings? Like, if I'm feeling negative and sad, I'm colder, and then if I'm because I've noticed when I'm mad, I feel hot, like the body temperature. And then it's like splashing water on my face. And I think that's part of, your environment affects you, your inner environment affects you. So I was like, I just can't sit down and try to formulate all these thoughts about the whole day right now. I'll get some sleep and then I'll do it tomorrow. But that's where I said, like, homeless individuals outside don't have that. So they get stuck in, my feet still hurt. Like, there's no healing. There's no it might be resting for a little bit, but I can't get into a hot bath and help my muscles relax. I can't, you know, go get chamomile tea and let my mind relax. I can't do those things. I've got to rest a little bit if I can, and then get up and do it all over again the next day. And there's a lot of people outside that they don't have places to sit down and rest. They don't have places to go. Like, there might be certain warming centers or something, but even then everything's conditional. And that doesn't always, it's this is where I say the world is not fair. Like, there's so many things that are structured of you have to do it this way. And I think that's one thing that I learned working in crisis services is for each individual person, they're going through their own crisis from their point of view, from what they're feeling, they're experiencing. And so trying to put everybody in the same boxes and you have to do things this certain way is not does not work for everybody. Some people might be okay with quiet, so they may be able to go to the library. Some people, the quiet keeps them in their head, and then they just ruminate over things. Some people might be able to go to the shelter and be able to go to sleep with a lot of noise going on. But some people, the noise gets to them and the chaos and the hearing everybody else's trauma and stuff. So even though people say you should go inside, some people can't. Like they physically can't, or they, in their minds, they can't because it's too much. It's too much noise. Just like some people, it's too much silence. So there's I think that was one thing that I kept trying to explain to people is the people that I helped, I said each person is individual. Each person has their own thing. This person, they want to listen to music while they talk. This person doesn't. This person walks around a lot. This person pretty much has a pattern, does the same thing. This person, so even when my job was to catch people in crisis and then bring them into permanent services. And it was like, I would try to be like, this person needs a caseworker that's like this. There's a lot of stuff of like personalities could clash. Just like I've noticed that with myself. It's the average person you could think, even with stuff that, for those of you who aren't homeless, even with stuff like doctors, you go get your primary doctor, you meet them, and then you may be like, this is not the doctor for me. Like, they aren't listening to me. They don't understand. I had one where it was a male doctor, and I was trying to explain like female things, and he's like, oh, whatever, you don't need to worry about that. And then I'm like, well, this is not the doctor for me. It's the same thing with everything. So I think a lot of times people have to be, I don't know if it's personalities need to click or, I don't know how to phrase it, but if you know, you know. So I keep trying to bring awareness to the homeless population. And I would say that some people sometimes try to bring awareness and it backfires. Like we had a lot of articles and news things that were done, and I know it's in the media a lot. And it depends on what station you listen to, what thing you watch, but a lot of times it's like the homeless population gets blamed for a lot, gets labeled a certain way, gets called names, gets put into these categories or these mindsets where people think everybody's this way or that way, not thinking like these are all individual people, and it's because the media might say like this happened and this person was homeless, so that must make everybody that way. But they do that with everything. So I guess my whole point of making this video, particularly now, is it's the holidays, and certain people get into a giving spirit. And if if you feel like you can, and you feel like you don't know what to do, or you think that you can't make a difference because it's just you, I promise you, like, um, any small thing that you do will be appreciated, because I saw that within the population that I helped. I saw that um, yesterday with walking around. I saw that with, I mean, even I wasn't in that position, but even that guy offering me money, he didn't take it as a horrible thing that I said, no, I'm not. Um, just like you may offer somebody who's homeless something and they may say, no, I don't need that right now, because everybody's needs are individual. I think society puts up these things of like, everybody needs this at this time. Some people may not need it. Some people do want to stay outside and they're like, no, I don't want to deal with bills and the government and, all of those things. I would rather, this is when I think in the pandemic, a lot of people were doing like van life, and there's a lot of people going off the grid and doing things themselves and building things themselves and stuff like that. But even that guy offering me something, you know, um, gave me that feeling again of, there are people out there who do care. There are people out there willing to help. That sometimes if we don't experience it, or if we've had negative interactions where we asked for help and we didn't get it, we might get stuck in that mindset of nobody wants to help anybody. Make it personal. Make it by, you know, um, that there's nobody cares. But there are, because I had heard it with clients about, they would get in that mindset and then somebody would come along and hand them money or hand them something. So if you feel that calling or that desire, I promise you it will make a difference. You think that if it's just you, you don't make a difference, but it always starts with one. I think that the media and society and stuff don't point that out. You know, um, Revolutions start with one. Ideas of things start with, everything starts with an idea. Success starts with a thought and an idea and movement then. And I know for me, I had struggled so much with my decision to quit my job, but it just got to the point where I was like, it's not helping me to have to do things this certain way without any help, because it's traumatizing people, and it's traumatizing me, and I can't fix everything. I know a lot of times I'd get into that fix it mode, but I'm not in the fix it mode, mentality anymore. I'm in more of the expression and the um, what can I do differently, moving forward. Of sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's helping one person, sometimes it's one person helping you. Sometimes it's little tiny things. So if you see someone out this holidays, because it is cold, and think about yourself, like I've said in other videos, like think about when you've been cold, or even while you're Christmas shopping, because I know Now it's right before Christmas, and a lot of people will be out shopping or putting up decorations or doing something. Like, think how cold you are. And for a lot of you, I know you probably have on layers and think, like, some people don't. Like, that's our empathy. Like, try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Think about it from their perspective. Like, maybe even what you're experiencing and you're feeling, they may have less. And so imagine how they would feel, because it does make a difference. And I promise you that the people that you help remember it. They remember people who have wronged them completely, and they remember people who have come across them when they've had a need, whether it's a meal or gloves or hand warmers or, you know, some sort of connections to services, anything. They remember it. They remember offers. They remember gifts. They remember things like that. And it does impact and change people's perspectives of the world. And I think that's what, going into the new year, that's me, of like seeing things from different perspectives, not just mine. I mean, I've always tried to look at it from other people's perspectives too. And sometimes I've done that so much that I forget about me, my perspective. But I've been trying to do let me see it from everybody's point of view. That doesn't mean anybody's right or wrong, or, it's not black or white. It's that each person has their different perspective. And if you feel the desire during this giving season to give and to help, I promise there's people out there who would appreciate it greatly. So I hope that everybody's having a good holiday. Um, and I'll chat with you later. I'm probably gonna make another couple of videos today, just because I feel a lot better and I slept really well. And I just have so many ideas about things, or I guess so many things to talk about. Like I stated, I think and think and think and, research and whatever with my thoughts. And then I jump into it and say a bunch. Um, and I like sharing anything that I've learned or any insights or resources or anything. So, hope you guys are having a good day, and I'll chat with you later. Bye.